reach the traditional custodians. We are gathered here this morning, Kabi peoples and Jinbara peoples, and pay respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Can you all hear me? Great. So thank you for turning up here today. That's always, one thing we think about is how many people are going to turn up. So we're very pleased to see you all here this morning. Just before we begin, just to give you a little heads up, what we will do is we'll tour around the exhibition space and roughly, sort of 5 or so minutes in each kind of category, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. So we will actually start in Gallery 3 and move around, snaking through the gallery and then finish here. So as Jen mentioned, if you'd like to bring your stool with you, please feel free to do so. So my name's Nina Shadforth. I'm the Senior Curator for Art Collections and saying collections, as we are now a combined collection with public art as well as the fine art collection, if you like. And so with the combination, the combining of the two collections, it's also combining the two curators. So I have Julie Horrocks, Assistant Curator, and she brings her knowledge of public art into the team as well. So that's pretty much us as the team. And so welcome to the latest and greatest 3. The latest and greatest is a series established to, I guess, look at a way to share the collecting activity of the art collection in a 2-year snapshot. And as you can guess, it's called Latest and Greatest 3. So this is our 3rd exhibition. So over 6 years, we have documented and presented the growth of the art collections. Just a few facts about the collection. So prior to amalgamation, there were 3 councils on the Sunshine Coast, and each council had its own version of corporate art collection. No collection policy or any sort of framework to guide the collecting activity. So on amalgamation, there was a combination, these 3 collections all combined, very disjointed. So council engaged a consultant to do a significance assessment of the whole collection, ranking them from most significant to least significant, what constitutes an artwork, what doesn't constitute an artwork, because when you think about a corporate art collection, things like corporate gifts come into play, and that might be a football jersey, and because it's in a frame, it's like, oh yeah, that's in the art collection. Clearly not, unless it's been, sort of reinterpreted by an artist, then you might have a different story. So on that, after the significance assessment, there was the development of a collections policy to guide the collecting areas for council to actually have a more cohesive art collection. But that art collection policy also includes like the fine art collection, the public art collection, and cultural heritage collections. So it was a framework for all 3, I guess, to guide us in our collecting activity. And that was endorsed by Council in 2017. And so that's the policy and the guidance that we've been working under. And with the art collections, the focus areas are regionally relevant, nationally significant, and of course, First Nations, and any media, pretty much. So, and you'll see that demonstrated in this exhibition. There's quite a range of media, plus the addition of digital works, which has only recently been included in the collecting activity. So from last year, we had the Sunshine Coast National Art Prize with a digital category added. And of course, the winning work was the digital work. So it was just like, oh, okay, what do we do with digital works now? How do we store them? How do we present them? And, I guess safeguard from any technical corruptions in files or hardware, obsolete software, things like that. So that's a new area that we've got to look into and learn about as we go. So, in this exhibition, Latest and Greatest, it's not the whole list of works that is in the catalogue or on the screen. So we combined with public art and fine art. There's 249 works collected in the 2-year period. So if we had a bigger gallery, then we could have them all displayed. So on display is a selection. So that's about 83 works altogether. The other thing that's a little bit different is the curation of this show. I have grouped works in mini exhibition concepts. So if you look, as you move around the space, you'll see there's some text at the top of the walls, and they have little exhibition concepts. So these are works in progress, but just a little snapshot of an idea that could then be developed into a full exhibition in later years when we have a new gallery. Fingers crossed there. So, so that's kind of, in a nutshell, this exhibition. And I guess it's really, we just want to share it with the community and make the community aware that it's your asset. It's a cultural asset that's growing, that talks about local voices, it talks about national voices in the visual arts media. Okay? So, yeah.
You give it out online, you give it out online to people in the community?
Kind of. So, yeah, the collection artworks can be requested or loaned by other institutions if they're curating exhibitions, which is a really good thing. For example, in the past we have had some works from the collection loaned to Gladstone Regional Gallery. So it means that, excuse me, it means that the Sunshine Coast is actually on display elsewhere in other regions. Another exhibition where we had a previous SCAT winner included in its show toured all the way down the east coast to Tasmania and back up again. So every time that particular work is on display, the label, the didactics, just a little bit of information tells people where that's from, and it also just, I guess, enables people to understand that there is some great, art and culture is alive on the Sunshine Coast. So it just broadens that visibility, I suppose. And the other thing, just further to that, is the art collection is also, we have very fortunate that we have 7 libraries and a beautiful new City Hall building where we can display artworks from the collection. So we want to, take any opportunity we can to share it with the community. So just across the road at Caloundra Library, you'll see artworks on the wall that they are from the art collection. There's some artworks at Coolum at the moment, Coolum Library, Kenilworth Library, and of course City Hall. And I think Mullany have some at the moment. There's none at Beerwah, but we just do rotations throughout the year to kind of refresh and, sort of enable people to engage with art indirectly, if you like. So, good question, thank you. Is there any other questions before we sort of move on? Yes.
Yeah, just one. So do you have any relationship with the university and the art gallery there that they have on the coast?
We do. So we have loaned works to the university for exhibitions. And so, yes, we do at times share resources like that. And sometimes programs will sort of work together, particularly Horizon Festival is a good example, where both, Caloundra Gallery and the Uni Gallery will sort of co-curate part of the program. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Is there anything in place or being planned for some sort of major promotion of art on the Sunshine Coast aligned with the Olympics? Because there's so much being talked and so much money going into different areas. Are we going to get a chunk of that?
That's a really good question. Look, I know there are conversations, but I'm not sure, you know, this, as you can appreciate, council's quite a big organisation, so there are sort of working groups that are working on sort of the Olympics, and you know, I don't know what is actually in store. It's probably a bit early to say that as yet.
I think there is dedicated funding for cultural activities in the lead up to the games, so it is on the agenda.
Yeah. So, but just as far as, who's sort of managing that, or if that's, you know, that's what I mean, it's a bit early, we haven't kind of had those conversations to tap into that funding. Another interesting thing about some available funding is the state government's city deals project. So there's funding available for each region, local government area for public art, so new public art. So there, you know, there is potential to expand our public art collection through this funding. So we're working on that at the moment to secure funds. So that's exciting as well. So there are things happening behind the scenes. But so
Thank you.
So I think we might move through space, and I can talk to you a little bit about each section, and you just pick out a few works or a few artists. There is a lot, so we won't get through everything, but just to give you a bit of an overview, and then of course spend more time sort of taking that in. So if we up stools, and if you'd like to follow me into gallery. And so currently I'm standing in two exhibition concepts. One is called Humankind, and the other is Diversity Identity. So rather than curate the exhibition looking at media and grouping things by media, so all the paintings together, all the prints together, so, you know, I wanted to kind of make some little statements and just show the possibilities of what we can do with the art collection as well. So looking at humankind, it varies from, you know, the ordinary day-to-day where you've got workmen, you've got farmers at the Roma sale yards, you've got families enjoying some outdoor time on Gari. Then we've got moving along, so a bit of realism, a little bit of expressionism, and then of course into abstract and conceptualism. So all using the human form to talk about various aspects. So David Rankin, this one-man study, and standing figure in the room. They do represent the human form, but very, very pared back and minimal and abstract. And that's what he is known for, is abstraction. Quite a significant artist. Joe Furlonger is another significant artist, mainly a landscape painter, but when he also does paint a figure in the landscape. And of course, AJ Taylor, I'm not sure if you're aware of his work, but AJ Taylor is more a landscape artist as well. But this came out of a proposed project that he was invited to work on. And of course, you know, it's about observing people at work. So you could even expand on these things like that. You could do an exhibition display of people at work and look at examples of artworks that represent that. And of course, beautiful Mornington Island doll. It was a commissioned doll by a friend of the donor, and when they visited Mornington Island in the 80s, and commissioned the doll by one of the art makers in the community. We don't know who that maker is, but we have enough provenance to accept it into the collection, which is another important element, is understanding the provenance, like the the origin, the collecting history, like where it's been to get to us as well. On this side, I look at diversity and identity. So these works is one of the Nolan works. So the donor of the David Rankin collection also donated a suite of 9 Sydney Nolan prints. That these prints talk about his visit to Auschwitz, and it was kind of like in his dream that he saw these figures and human forms. It's a pretty sad response, really. And these have also come from a larger work in the National Gallery. I think it is that there's a huge 9-panel or 10-panel painting that talks about this Inferno series. So these are a derivative of that painting, and were done in the UK when he was visiting as a residency project. So there are a few of those around, but in terms of a complete suite of 9, not many institutions have them, so we're one of the very few. So very fortunate for that. Of course, Todd Fuller, our last year's Schnapp winner. Wonderful thing about exhibitions that we have in the space is that oftentimes an artist might offer to donate more work to the collection. So this being one of them. So there's 4 drawings that Todd gave us that support this work. So we've got a bit of a story happening with just that one work. Gerwin Davies is another finalist in the art prize. So he also donated work. So we have 3 of his works in the gallery, and he also has, both artists actually have a nice connection to this gallery and to the Sunshine Coast. So that's something else we consider, is the connection to the region. And when you think about, say, Sydney Nolan and David Rankin, that they're not necessarily connected to the Sunshine Coast, but the collector resides here on the Sunshine Coast as well as in Brisbane. So he has a long time connection with the Sunshine Coast. So, and just to give you a sense of the scale of this donation, there was 70 David Rankin works in total, plus 9 Nolans. So that's just one short of 80 artworks gifted by one person. And as a straight gift, not a cultural gift, which is another means to build a collection. The cultural gifts are a tax incentive scheme where the value of the work is assessed and applied to the donor's future tax, or so it's an offset program. So so these are interesting concepts around diversity. Gerwin sort of being extremely visible in these works, yet invisible, and it's talking about gender equity issues. The flag, Peter Drew, he's a South Australian artist or based in South Australia at the moment. He did a whole series of these flags. They were exhibited at Jan Murphy Gallery in Brisbane. But these works talk about migration and talk about the loss of culture coming to a new place. So there's themes of cultural loss, displacement, and going on in these works. So this is number 18, flag number 18, and I think there's about 23 of them altogether. I was in Melbourne recently and went sort of into a street art exhibition and saw one of his works in there as well. So
Do we only have that one in it?
yeah. So, but that was a straight donation as well.
Can I ask you a question? This is done on an actual flag,
It
isn't
is
it?
actually, yeah. So this
See
is
the hooks at the top.
Yeah, it's a mixed media piece, so it's
Right.
done on flag, and it also has print, but paint applied, and I think there's some other It's in their stitching somewhere. They're all on flags. So you can stay where you are, and I'll just talk you through this section here. Actually, just quickly behind you is that's okay. There's 2 public artworks in this section as well. And whilst we can't actually have the actual artwork itself in here, we try to incorporate as much information as possible. So you can see the maquettes, so the small Isla work, the winged arbor, which is in Harmony development, the residential development.
But Crescent Park, I believe.
So it does have the location, and there's one thing, we try to give you a little bit more information about the works on the didactic panels, but you can see both Simon and Tori have provided working drawings. There's a photograph of the work in situ. There's also a beautiful video from Simon, some samples, testing effects and aesthetic, and of course Tori, we thought it'd be great to show the mould, so you can get an understanding of how a bronze sculpture can be created. So we try to make this exhibition an education as well.
The videos are really lovely insight to see someone's process.
Yeah.
Development, creation of the work. It's quite insightful. So it's very good.
Yeah, it is. And so for each, or for not each, but for most of the public artworks in this exhibition, we have got a video of some sort that you can have a listen to. So here, this section is the abstract subtract. So it's dominated by David Rankin, of course, because as I said, we've got 70 of his works in the collection now. And the one thing I didn't mention about those works is that they capture a beautiful career sort of snapshot of David's work from the mid-60s right through to the 2010. So it's a really great spread of his evolution as an artist and his studio practice. But I have mixed it up a little bit. So flanked on either side by David Rankins is this lovely work by Natalia Humphrey. So she's a local abstract artist, and she works both in 2D and 3D abstraction and plays around with the simple planes and cubes and angles and diagonals. So it's a very minimal work, but it's something that's quite peaceful for me looking at it. She's also got public artwork in Nambour and Curry Street. Another abstract minimalist artist is June Sudrican. So she just works similarly in, angular planes, but more about the surface. And so her works, not so much, even though that's painted, but just the way the light falls creates another dimension on that work. And more David Rankins. We also recently received a donation of some ceramics, which you've seen on the way in. That's another one of them. So Glenn Manning is one half of the Glenn Manning-Kathy Daly duo in public art. So it's a beautiful example of his ceramic practice, which I wasn't aware of until I received that work. But it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And if you get a chance to have a look, just sort of tip your head and have a look underneath. It's got the most beautiful purple glaze, rich colour. Now we're moving to, there's only one for this, but that's the digital dimensions. So this is another interesting digital work. It's a collaboration between a composer and a digital visual artist. So there's 3 screens, and the work itself is a 10-year compilation of composed, I don't know if you can call them songs, but tracks. And they're very cinematic, very dramatic, and the imagery is to kind of reflect the tone. So you look at the first one, you know, a very soft apricot tone, which kind of relates to the compositions that are, they're cinematic, but they're soft, they're calming, and then you sort of get into a little bit more erratic, and then you get into really, you know, higher tempo compositions with the last one. And there's 3 chapters, so that is an evolved piece over 10 years. And he's also, he grew up here on the Sunshine Coast, the composer, and has done extremely well internationally, has been quite successful, so he's another homegrown artist. So I'll get back to that one in a moment. If we're ready to move to the next space. So in this area, I have she, her, sites and structures, and spirit stories. And the spirit stories is quite a large one. It sort of goes on a corner, goes into the corner and along the wall. The she, her, again, just another concept to explore with works in the collection. Obviously, we have a lot more works that have the female form, but in terms of what came into the collection in the last 2 years, these are key works. You've got a combination of local artists. You've got Winnie McGrath, Aidan McLeod, it's the small bronze, the pregnant torso. Vicky Murray was local, she's based in Melbourne now, but she was, this work came out of the Local Artist, Local Content exhibition a couple of years ago, as did some of the other works that are on display. And of course, this is a recent cultural gift. So this is by a donor in Melbourne. The artist is in Melbourne, and I learned when I went to go and have a look at the works that they're a husband and wife. But she was in the studio the day that I visited her, and she talked me through her practice, and she is absolutely really fascinating. And she was also a finalist in SCAC 2 years ago. So that's, you know, again, there's another connection. So we try to sort of keep that thread running through everything that we collect some way or another. Jan Williams, he's based around the Somerset area. So this is the Dark Moon bronze, and that's a solid bronze. The other one is a hollow bronze, so it's quite heavy. But his partner is Jane Hartthorne, the ceramicist, and we also have works of hers in the collection as well. So there's lots of little connections that pop up throughout. And of course, a Joe Furlonger and a David Rankin. I would like to mention with the Joe Furlongers, we have the largest collection of Joe Furlonger works in regional Queensland. Don't know outside of that, but quite possibly for a regional gallery, that's quite a significant asset. We've probably got about 170 to 180 Joe Furlonger works. So, and that's works on paper, paintings and ceramics, and soon to be bronzes coming into the collection, which he only has done a few, and I guess building that relationship that he's come to us with those on offer. So, and the typical Joe Furlonger aesthetic. Sites and structures, so you would recognise this work from last year's Sunshine Coast Art Prize, so that was the People's Choice winner, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda Weston. So again, you know, out of an exhibition, sometimes a work will find its way into the collection. Megan Corrie, she's another local that came out of that Local Artist, Local Content exhibition at the same time as Vicky Murray. And of course, Maggie Parry, that's one of a pair, so she gifted those to us not so long ago. And of course, Maggie's got such a long-standing association with the gallery, it's nice to have a piece of her work in the collection. And of course, you know, Rex, Bacchus Smith. What is a Sunshine Coast Art Collection without a Rex in its collection? So That's the second work of his that we have in the collection now. We have that beautiful, huge blue and yellow, country town painting, watercolour, and then so it's more contemporary. But then we also have something from this is the 60s. We don't really know exactly, but it's a beautiful work. And the donor, before he gave it to us, put it through some conservation treatment to then give it to us in a good condition, so that we don't have to do. And it's called quilting, yes. And yeah, again, it's an exquisite example of watercolour. Sites and structures, furthermore, Peter Hudson, a well-known local artist. This work and the other one that's at the front of the exhibition, the large work, both came out of an exhibition, Land Holds Memory. So again, a long-term project where work has been developed, and we have 2 examples by Peter in that from that show in the collection. This is just part of an installation by Margaret de Mosa, also a local artist. So there's 10 pieces altogether. But Sites and Structures is looking at landscape and buildings and natural landscape. I didn't point this out, but Robert Brownhall is a Brisbane-based artist, but has spent a lot of time on the Sunshine Coast. So this is Coolum, and it's a study for the painting, which is enormous. It's nearly 3 metres long, and that's at Coolum Library at the moment. So if you wanted to go and have a look at the painting of that work, it's worth going. So that was a cultural gift, but yeah, a lovely image of Coolum. And of course, other objects in the landscape. Young Finn Cossa, he's our youngest emerging public art practitioner and is doing some great things. So again, here's another little maquette, so a little sample. It also includes some of the material that was used to make this. So he's welded all of that to form Mount Biawak.
And just to note, a lot of the chain was actually sourced from local people in town. So the chain that it's made from is local to the Biawak and
And into spirit stories, so we have a combination of local Kabi and Jinnaburra artists, as well as artists outside of the region. Plus we have a Sunshine Coast Art Prize winner, we have a local contemporary contribution, and we also have the most recent Council Commission of Public Art, Juragunja, by Lyndon Davis, Kabi artist, and that work is at the main entrance of City Hall. There's actually 3 of the fish, of the mullet, and it's about the story of the mullet and the sea eagle. And there's a little bit of a video of behind the scenes of the making of the work, plus an image of the work in situ. So that you can go and see any time of the day. It's a beautiful work. Yeah, or night, that's right. Yeah, so you'll see the red and the black symbolic of the Maroochy River and the Swan, and it's all, so that cultural story is actually on the didactic, but that's all sort of blended into this work. And that came out of a mentorship program that Julie and I developed for local Kabi artists to participate in developing public art concepts and proposals, and then, learning about how you present it and the selection process and everything. And Lyndon was a successful artist in that program.
And the red lines, Lyndon hand painted.
Yeah.
Those works,
So-
one horizontal.
Yeah.
To
So if you can picture a gyros or a rotisserie, a barbecue, where you've got the pole and the turns over the coals, Well, the paint workshop actually had a similar setup for the fish to spray paint, to coat them, so they had a beautiful even surface coat, and then baked, and then so it's automotive paint sort of thing, and then lived and painted by hand.
How do you bake something as big as that?
They have a huge oven, like it's massive.
They do vehicles.
They do cars, you know, like and trucks. Yeah, in Coolum, a firm in Coolum. I can't think of their name, but so again, you know, local businesses have been involved in creating this work, as some of the other works as well. So, so again, as I said, this is aimed at being a bit of an education piece as well. Luke Malley, this is another commission. So within council, there's various departments, and for example, this one was commissioned by the First Nations Partnerships team, and they wanted to have a digital image to represent the Reconciliation Action Plan, and this year is Stretch. So they have themes each, I think it's every 2 years, where they use images to promote the work of First Nations partnerships, business enterprises and things for local First Nations people in the region. And the beautiful Zatisha Davis was the other commission that they awarded to. So she's a very, very busy at the moment, upcoming Kabi artist. So she's doing lots of great things. She's working in beautiful textiles as well as paintings.
And can I just add to Luke's?
Yes.
Luke
Yes.
has, it's called Caloundra Dreaming, which is the whale, and it's the mural on the back of the transit centre here in Caloundra on Williamson Lane.
Yeah, Williamson Lane.
If you haven't been down there, it's beautiful big work, and yeah, that was
You can't miss it,
so
really.
great to be part of and watching it being installed.
Yeah. So, and then of course works like Jason Murphy and Alan Kiner and Enid Morris came out of the Horizon Festival exhibition. So, and of course Annie Ho, you may have recognised this work in her recent solo show here at the gallery the last year before. This is an interesting work, and it's been, I'll just say, the works on this wall are all women artists, and the works on this wall are all men. But this work is a combination, so it's both men and women, First Nations, some from this area, some from out of the region. And this was developed during COVID in lockdown, and the lead artist, Shalina Hughes, she reached out to a lot of artists about creating or responding to works that she has created. So she works in this beautiful cyanotype medium, and then she popped these in the post and sent them out to various artists, and those that did respond did the work and sent them back. So it's called Together We Stand, and it's a beautiful example. It's actually 10, so this one here is 2 works, but it's just a beautiful example of collaboration against the odds in terms of, created during lockdown. So it's quite a significant work, and it's been placed there to kind of, not so much mix the women's and men's and First Nations, but this is it's a unifying piece between the two. So, what else? Calatina, she's also an emerging local Kabi. Cindy Mills, you would have recognised this work from a previous local artist, local contemporary. You may also recognise Jennifer Hurd when we had the Vale Histories exhibition. So this is one of 6. So we actually have 6 of these beautiful targets, truth targets in the collection. And they talk about the, of course, invasion and the horror of colonisation on our First Nations. So they're beautiful works, they're painstakingly punctured with pins that symbolises the punctures of bullets through their shields, trying to protect themselves and defend their place. So it's a very deep work. Above that is local carbon cover artist Bridget Chile, and we've also got another work of hers in the collection, so it sits beautifully together with hers. And then of course you will remember this one, Judith Nangala Crispin, Jenny, when she's in spirit form watching the first UO hers appear above the West Macdonald Ranges. So every time we have to do a didactic, we think, wow, how are we going to make that fit? But an incredibly interesting process, and I guess it blends photography, it blends the application or the process similar to cyanotypes and photograms. So you're familiar with photograms where you've got light sensitive paper, you can place objects, leaves and things, place it out in the sun, and then you have an imprint of the object on the work. So her object is usually roadkill, and I guess her concept behind using roadkill is, she's very affected emotionally when she sees roadkill, and so this is her way of giving them a dignified departure, celebrating them in an image like this, and then giving them a better burial. So she wrapped Jenny in some paper bark and gave her a dignified farewell rather than left on the side of the road and scraped up with a shovel. So it's a really beautiful thing that she does, I think. So, and then she embellishes that further with various materials, paint, liquid paper, I think eyeliner is in this one as well. But yeah, so she has an interesting setup, a geodesic dome, where she puts the paper, the light sensitive paper and the chemicals and the bird or animal that's been injured, deceased, and then just leaves it there sometimes for days, and it just takes on this otherworldly kind of appearance. So she's very interesting, and also just fun fact, she's a former opera singer, and she doesn't, but like international opera singer, and gave that away to do this, and also devote time to poetry and writing. So she's a really interesting artist.
We do have a series of videos on the gallery website that you can access and via our YouTube channel. Would that be right? Are they on YouTube, Stu? And they're from the artist talks, and there was an interview.
That's right. Yeah, on
Yeah.
Facebook too.
Yeah.
If you search on Facebook, there's an interview with her as well. And just before we go around to our last section, this work sort of like it's got an impala and some flashes of coloured diamonds. So that is actually a remnant, well, it's not a remnant, but it forms part of the next concept, which is other realms and occupants. So it's we don't have a lot of information about the actual meaning behind that work as yet, but we're sort of looking into that. But it's also, it was a local commission, a local donor commission. So, so yes, in fact, if there's any works in the collection that you see that you know something about, feel free to let us know, because we always like to learn more about the works, and it just helps build the story. Okay, last time to move. If we just up stools again, and we'll move into the main gallery one. So this section, well, there's two. One I mentioned, other realms and occupants. So this is looking at dreamlike concepts as well as flora and fauna in the environment. And when I say dreamlike sort of concepts, there's 3 examples on the wall. So you've got the Peter Hudson Girrawee After Dark. So that's a very dreamlike image with different, snake, the fish, the cloud, and the rain, and the stars all sort of combined into one. That's a mixed media piece on paper. So it's quite a large work on paper. And I didn't mention it before, but that beautiful Dana Cirilla semi-nude, if you like, that is on a work on paper as well. So which makes it even more stunning, I think. Other dream-like sort of concepts of the John Worth print, World Egg, and below that is Young Things, the Moss. So there's some information about that on the touch screen over by the in the gallery shop there. Talking about the monster, Julie might be able to talk about the monster a bit. What's behind that?
It's he stretched his imagination on this one. It was just gorgeous. So he had this concept of these mushroom species in Russell Family Park from thousands of years ago. They were getting picked off by all the local birds and animals and vastly declining. So over thousands of years, they started to grow appendages instead of a stalk so that they could actually escape their predators. And so the idea of the Monts, when you go visit Montville, they start in a Russell Family Park and they kind of just look like a mushroom, and then you can see the fingers developing, and then there's 4 or 5 in the main street where they're actually more animated. So he's actually cast his own hand in that process, and those little marquettes are examples of his processing of how he's going to make it, and then a small 3D print of one of the types that it actually is installed in the street. But they're lots of fun, and really kind of a quirky thing for visitors to come and go, what's that? And then if they're walking the streets, they'll see them along the footpaths and hopefully discover them all.
And that's an important thing about public art. I guess there's the public art that can be discovery type of interactions. Yeah. But then other forms of public art, like the 2 birds that you see, the marquettes, called chorus, and on a large scale, they form like a gateway to the Sunshine Coast in the aura. So if you sort of coming up the Bruce Highway and you go Roy's Road, and you come into the Sunshine Coast that way, it's another gateway. So it's more of a landmark work, if you like. And a lovely story about that is commissioned by Stockland, and the commissioner's friend has a son that every time they come to the Sunshine Coast insists on going through Aura so you can see the birds. So the thing about public art, it creates a place, identity and connection to place and things. So from, discrete little interventions like the moths to massive structures like the birds, the core chorus.
It was many, many years in development and stuff.
So again, that the video is really interesting to listen to the artists James and Eleanor Avery and about that commission and how that was developed. And of course, some beautiful flora examples, and of course fauna, more public art. Unfortunately, we didn't have much in the way of maquettes on these ones, but the new Ocarina Beach park area, the parklands, both of those works are in there, and again, much like the Monts, can cross these snakes and crabs. There's a few of them, so they're sort of hidden around or placed around the playground area. So, and the arbour by Glenn and Manning Daly is a misting arbour, which is also near the playground. So there's some really interesting things up and down. Our last section is water worlds and undercurrents. Sorry, yeah, no, I should. So, yeah, pretty obvious what this section relates to, and of course, this significant work by Joanne Curran-Alingu. She's also in our collection with an earlier work from the early 2000s. Again, a 3-panel work. So she tends to work in panels or groups of works, even works probably, sort of this size. And she doesn't have a studio, she just does it in the kitchen or in the bedroom. So, and she paints flat. And when you get close, you can see there's a beautiful surface that mimics the ripples of the water and the currents, and it all relates back to her growing up on the Maranoa River, and the paint. Interesting story about the paint is that she worked with the paint company to get at a certain consistency to enable her to paint this. So each line is actually a dot, drag, dot, drag, dot, drag, dot, drag process. So it takes forever. It's a very painstaking sort of process. But so it's not actually painted. And she'll spray paint the base with a colour and then just work away line after line after line. It's amazing. So, and we're very fortunate to have such a large work of hers in the collection. Craig Goma acquired a 5-panel piece of this not long after we were given this into the collection. So she's a very significant First Nations artist, so we're very fortunate, and she has a lovely connection with the Sunshine Coast as well. Of course, you recognise this beautiful work by Susan Schmidt. Such a lovely work, emotional work as well, and very different to what she normally does. Like, her work is more about sort of, they're more architectural type representations, but this is just an exquisite work, and of course it was a winner of the local contemporary. Another David Rankin, Bay and Ridge, so he worked in, sort of practicing areas around New South Wales coast, Ulladulla areas. Below that, Ted Seckham, he learned that we were given a work of his in the collection and decided to offer that, and it's a beautiful example of his work. We don't know much about Owen Rye at the moment, but that's a recent one that's coming from one of our major donors. The next one, Ginebra artist B.J. Murphy, so that's one part of a whole installation. Again, a very distressing story in that talks about the poisoning of Aboriginal people here on the coast, and by putting arsenic in the flour, there were little huts where they would leave, they being the land holders, farmers and whatnot, and put arsenic in the flour to poison them. It's horrible. So the horrible history. So that whole work talks about that. Of course, Ben Hedstrom, again, another local contemporary winner who actually has a show on at Noosa at the moment, a solo show. So if you're up that way, drop in and have a look. But it's a beautiful work, a local artist, but also a local location at Coolum. And then the last one, the 5-panel work, that's Beatrice Cross, so another local artist, but she's really an interesting artist. She combines photography and etching into the surface, so embellishing, not so much embellishing, but taking away from the surface and using a Dremel. So she, much like Joanne, she sits flat and does this minute detail. So if you have a closer look at those, you can see all of that engraving is by hand with a Dremel, just slowly.
So that's about it, and I'm happy to take some questions from the floor, but I'm happy to give you a few fun facts about the collection, and there's a bunch of public programs as well that follow on from this. I probably should put my glasses, but maybe I'll just give you some fun facts. So the collection size, combined collection size, is currently sitting at 1,368 works. With the collection value combined is somewhere between $8 and $12 million estimated value. The last 2 years, the collection increased in size by 26%. And just to give you a bit of a breakdown, say like gender and local versus non-local. So gender breakdown, 43% is works by women, and this is just the last 2 years now, and 52% are men artists, 33% are First Nations. So we've been working really hard at building the holdings of First Nations because it was a very low representation when I started. Local artists is 51%. Queensland artists, so there's 73%, and only 24% are interstate. 2D artworks is 89.93%. 3D artworks constitute only 6.6%, so we've got to do a bit of work there, which hopefully with the state funding we might be able to change that, improve that. Public art, 2.5%, and digital art is 0.94%. In terms of the breakdown of how they've come into the collection, through the cultural gifts, there's 9 works that came in, so that's about 17%. Through organisational commissions, so that's council, various departments, developers, and the like, is 19.6%, or 10 commissions, and then 58% makes up for individual donations or donors. So there's a bit of fun facts, and most of those are in the catalogue. So the catalogues are free and gives you a listing of all the works in the collection from the last 2 years. Jen?
The ones you were talking about last, the collection, is that from like private donors and artists, like what's been
So individuals, that's right. So it's an interesting mix, and I guess because we don't actually have an acquisitions budget allocated to us, that most of the collection, say about 90% is all donated in some way. And then I guess, the cultural gifts kind of includes donations, but there's, as I said, there's an offset for that. But it would be great to have an acquisitions budget to do some sort of targeted collecting in terms of perhaps making up where there's gaps in the collection. But it's all about building relationships, and also talking about the region and the cultural activity of the region. I guess is another important aspect of an art collection. But I think, just having something to connect to, the public art is really important for people to connect to. But there's, in this show, I guess there's something for everyone that you can connect with at least one piece, I'm sure. If not more.
Where's it stored?
Okay, so we have 2 stores, and there is, there is the art collection store project being, there's a working group to enable the building of a collection store. We don't know if that's actually going to get across the line yet, but we're working hard. But that is a purpose-built store that would be housing all of the art collection plus heritage collections as well. But short answer, I mentioned before that we have 7 libraries and we have a city hall building. That also enables us to store work, so we display. And for example, City Hall has about 60 odd works in it at the moment, and then we have others in storage. Others, and part of collection management too is that you can't have works out on display forever because they would just, you know, the effects of light and humidity will deteriorate the works. So part of the management of the collection is to rotate the works and put them in storage so that they're in climate controlled conditions, and then when they've had their rest they can come out again. So it's all that sort of logistical sort of things, and of course the conservation and care of artworks as well, and then any research. And like I said before, if you know something about the artist or an artwork that's in the show or on the slideshow or on the database, just send an email to the gallery inbox and just let us know, because it's always good to get stories and build that narrative. So yeah, I think that's me talked out, but is there any questions? All good?
If you're finished, can I just say something?
Yes.
I recognise a few faces here today. I'm Fiona, minor the president of the Friends of the Gallery. First of all, I'd like to first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to Nina for a very informative talk this morning about our wonderful collection here on display. I think it makes us very proud to actually see some of the works that truly belong to the ratepayers here on the Sunshine Coast, and it will be really exciting if and when we get our new gallery we'll be able to have maybe a dedicated area that we actually have an opportunity to showcase the beautiful collection that we do have. I just want to do a little plug for Friends of the Gallery. Thank you all for coming today. You got today is a public event advertised on the website for the gallery. I'm actually president of the Friends of the Gallery, and we have a membership of over 300 members, and we actually run a few extra events on top of what the gallery does organise. And I'd encourage you, if you're not already a member, maybe to come and see me. I can show you how you can become a member. Next Monday morning, Nina will be doing a similar talk, but more about the logistics of managing the behind the scenes of managing the collection. And if you come to a Friends event, you always get amazing food. And that will be a free event, but we've recently run an art gallery tour down to Caloundra to see the Asia Pacific Triennial. We often run evening events and other talks as well, but that's just something above and beyond. And we as a group advocate and support where we can our beautiful gallery, and just saying if you'd like to tap into that opportunity to become a member, come see me. Thank you. Thanks, Nina.
Thanks, Fiona. And look, just to wrap up, there's more public art on display just in the area around Caloundra. So Julie will be conducting a public art walk tour next Thursday morning on the 27th, and you meet here at the gallery at 8. Is it 8:30? 8:30. So you can sort of see the public art tour as well. Thanks, Fiona. And look, I just want to acknowledge a couple of other people. So there she is. Just meet Jasmine Sidhu, and Jasmine was an intern for us last year, and she came at the perfect time when we received the David Rankins. So it was a great experience for her. So Jasmine's doing her Masters at Griffith Uni in...
Just a Master of Visual Arts.
Yeah, Master of Visual Arts at the Griffith Uni. So Jasmine coming in at the same time the David Rankins arrived enabled us to do some really great documenting of the collection, because it's one of the things, and I'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to say welcome and thanks for coming up from Brisbane today to see some of the works that you would have worked on, so thank you. And yeah, there's a bunch of other public programs, but yeah, Fiona's here for a while, so have a chat to Fiona. I'm here for a while, and Julie and Jen, thank you everyone. And thanks again for coming and supporting what we do here. We love sharing what we do every day, so thank you.